Hey, hey, Lee.
Hi, Bach. How you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. How about you?
Quite nicely after the big storm we had here, which was a big problem for those of us who weren't quite ready, but that's another story.
Okay. Just tell us where you are quickly.
Oh, Blacksburg, Virginia. That's
Okay.
it's in Southwest Virginia, as opposed to the People's Republic of Northern Virginia.
Okay. Thank you. I'm in Orange County, where the Ayn Rand Institute is.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. Welcome everyone to this continuing series on bridging organic intelligence and Ayn Rand. We're loosely following here on my earlier interview with Jean Moroney and follow-up chat with Roger Atlas. It's not at all necessary for the audience to have watched those first, but if you want full context, you could pause the recording here and watch one or both of those first if you haven't already, and then come back here. Uh, with me is Dr. Lee Pierson. Uh, Dr. Pierson holds a PhD in psychology from Cornell University and was the last graduate student of J.J. Gibson. Lee's published research on the function of consciousness and on the function of visual imagery in problem solving. His article with Monroe Trout, billionaire market wizard, Ayn Rand admirer Monroe Trout, What is Consciousness For? Can be downloaded gratis at the website of New Ideas in Psychology. Dr. Pierson is the developer and presenter of a thinking skills seminar now entitled The Skill of Will, Sustaining Your Thinking to Your Goal. He has presented this and other seminars to students from grade school to grad school and beyond for a variety of educational and corporate clients in the United States and Canada. He was for many years the director of the Thinking Skills Institute of the Petrocelli College of Continuing Studies at Fairleigh Dickinson University. Dr. Pierson is the co-host, along with Steve Richens and Dr. Bob Stubblefield, of a YouTube podcast called Cutting Edge, which I view and enjoy, uh, which discusses a wide variety of controversial topics and is sponsored by the Ayn Rand Center UK. A sampling of topics Lee thinks about are the subconscious, the skill of will, focus, form of perception as actually form of sensation, the body in psychology, for example, perception psychology, the weaknesses of research in psychology, volition as a vector with a magnitude and a direction. Uh, we're going to have a free flow chat and see where things go. I did get thank you, by the way, Lee, for being here. Nice to have you here.
Now, thanks for having me, of
Um,
course.
yeah. I did
We're going
get
to have a good time, right?
yes, we are. Pleasure is everything. Um,
Well, now that's a question.
no, don't fight me yet. No, let's do, okay.
That's a question.
So,
Wait till I get you on cutting edge.
oh God. Okay. So, um, Lee gave me pre-approval to start in a specific way. I wanted to talk about that first, and then we'll do free flow. So, I'm gonna start by asking Lee about J.J. Gibson and Gibson's concept of affordances. Now, audience, don't click away. There will be payoff here. I know most of you don't know who Gibson is, but let me say why I'm starting this way. Okay. So, um, Roger Atlas, who appeared on my channel following the interview with Jean Moroney, studies organic intelligence and is a longtime student of objectivism. And when I would talk to him about orientation, which I'll simplify as perception. So when I say orientation in organic intelligence, just simplify it as perception. When I would talk about orientation and its role in OI, Roger kept thinking and saying to me, I'm thinking of J.J. Gibson, J.J. Gibson and his concept of affordances. And this happened repeatedly over a year. So I got very curious about Gibson, the idea of affordances, and introducing it to the OI thought space. Gibson, if I say anything wrong, correct me later when I'm done, Lee. Gibson was an American psychologist, specialized in perception, wrote voluminously on perception, especially visual perception. Note to the OI world, visual orientation is primary. Gibson is an influence on the thinking of some objectivist thinkers. Pierson, of course, here with me, Harry Binswanger. They're thinking on perception and epistemology. And the founder of OI, Steve Hoskinson, has mentioned Gibson, and also I believe Merleau-Ponty at times, in the context of lecturing on orientation. And in OI, there's a saying, orientation is everything. And it's primarily visual orientation. So the topic may have been a bit arcane to people, J.J. Gibson and affordances, but just I think there'll be payoff. So let me start here. Thank you, Lee. So would you just start us just a brief on Gibson, perception, and affordances, please? Thank you.
Okay, now that's a gigantic topic, but I'll
Yeah.
do my best. Let me start off personally and then move away from that.
Okay.
When I went to Cornell as a graduate student, I came there to study with a fellow named Ulrich Neisser, who is the purported father of cognitive psychology. He wrote the book, Cognitive Psychology. That doesn't mean therapy, by the way. That means the academic investigation of how the mind works to create knowledge. And that's why I went to study with this guy. And when I went to Cornell, I naturally sampled various classes by various professors. And I walked into this class. I'd heard about Gibson. One of my professors at Columbia when I was an undergraduate told me he was crazy. But anyway, I went into his class and I sat down, and within 5 or 10 minutes, I was awestruck. I had never seen a professor in my life, a professor who said, there's a real world out there, and you perceive that real world. You don't make it up. It's not an image in your mind. It's not a construction. It's not, it's not a representation. There's a real world, and you actually perceive that real world. And nobody had ever said that. No professor of any kind, physics, philosophy, or psychology, that I had in undergraduate, and I was just amazed. So I started going to Gibson. And slowly but surely, I gravitated away from cognitive psychology, which is a form of representationalism, not direct realism, to Gibson's direct realism. So his basic point is that there's a real world that you actually perceive directly, not mediated by some model, some image, some represent something in your brain, something in your mind that's between you and the world. You actually contact the world. And in that, in Gibson's view, um, the body, or particularly movement, is of extreme importance. You don't get perception just by sitting there as if you were a brain in a vat and sensations come in integrated. There's a certain theory in objectivism of perception, that it's basically, which, by the way, is not part of the philosophy, incidentally, I should say that, but there's a theory that perception is the integration of sensations coming into the brain. That's a very passive theory, and under that theory, you might as well be a brain in a vat. Under Gibson's theory, perception is an achievement, and you go out there and you cause variation in the stimulation that you're able to pick up by your sense organs. Yes, I'm sorry. Yep, you can ask a question anytime you want.
Okay, so you're okay with interruptions?
From you, sir? Of course. You're the boss here.
Well, okay. So didn't Ayn Rand say I'm kind of rusty on my ITOE, on my objectivist epistemology, but didn't she say perception is an active process, or did she say consciousness is not a passive but an active process? So
yeah, she said consciousness is an active process. But I'm talking. This is a contextual matter.
Okay.
It's you could say, I mean, you can say the brain is active even in this theory of even in a brain in a vat. You
Okay.
got signals coming in, and then the brain will be doing stuff to the signals in that sense. But when Gibson's talking about activity, he's talking about movement. You got to walk around things, or you got to take. If you want to perceive something, you have to take it in your hand and play with it. And
What,
that's the
okay,
kind of
wait.
activity we're talking
What?
about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just make sure we have some common ground on perception. I'm not getting technical, but we mean like seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, feeling. I mean, we have that's the context, right? That's
Well, okay. Here, let me introduce Gibson's book, which is the one I think a lot of people, for most people, first finding out about Gibson, I recommend this book. He wrote three books, and I recommend the second one for entry, although the third one's perfectly good too, and the first one isn't bad. But the second book is called The Senses Considered as Perceptual Systems. The Senses Considered as Perceptual Systems. That's 1966, long time ago, but it's still good reading. And his point was there are two systems that involve the senses, not just one, but two. And what he called the senses considered as perceptual systems, that's internalized perceiving. And then he called the other one as the senses considered as channels of sensation.
wait. So, what are the senses?
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is that the word the senses is somewhat
Ah,
is often used. It's equivocal because you can talk about what Gibson called the senses considered as perceptual systems. That's perceiving. And perceiving is an active process. You go around, you do things. It's more of a as a kind of a circular aspect to it. I wouldn't go too far to say call it feedback, but it's circular. And senses as sensation is passively sitting there, and sensations, blobs of color, flashes of light are taken in somehow. Those are Gibson says two
okay.
separate systems. And Gibson is interested in perception, not particularly in sensation. And he believes that sensation is irrelevant to perception. All those sensory experiences, like flashes of light, blobs of color, meaningless stuff moving around in your field of vision, that isn't what perception is not based on integrating those things. You don't first have some sensations, and then the brain takes that in and somehow those conscious
So,
experiences
wait, but
integrates them. Yeah.
in when you say perception is not just an integration of sensations. When you say sensations, there you mean stuff coming in my eyes, stuff coming in my ears, stuff my
Well,
fingertips. You my
here again, this is a problem.
okay,
This is a
okay,
big
okay.
problem because it's equivocal. Depends on who you're talking about. But if we're talking about, let's talk about a guy named Leonard Peikoff, who defines
Okay,
sensations well. I like his
okay,
definition.
okay.
The sensations are irreducible conscious experiences based on the stimulation of a sensory, mm, maybe you said nerve. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's an irreducible conscious experience. So from that standpoint, it's not we're not talking about the signals traveling along the neurons, which is another sense of the word sensation. We're talking about the conscious experience. And the idea that the Gibson rejects actually both kinds of integration, but he rejects the idea that you take a conscious experience of sensation and then somehow put that together and make a percept out of it.
Okay, I'm a
Yeah.
little at sea here because I'm trying to. What's in my mind is respecting conceptual hierarchy. And when you mention things like neurons, that's a very advanced concept. And I was trying to, I took myself to be just saying things that are very available and lower level conceptually. Just I learn about eyes and ears and touching.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to verify with you that that is the overall subject here. I know you're going to
Okay.
get nuance with,
let,
but
let, let me see if I can
okay,
illustrate
okay, okay.
without, because I think you kind of caught me here, because I think Dr. Peikoff did not use the word neuron, and I wouldn't normally
Watch
either.
out, Lee. I'm on to you, Lee.
All
So
right, so
okay.
but I would normally stay away. I think he said, let's see, response to a stimulus. It's an irreducible conscious response to it without committing as to the neural basis. I think that's true. So you could, but it was the key thing here is that it was an irreducible conscious experience. That's what a sensation.
Okay.
It's one kind of irreducible. The
Lee,
genus is conscious experience.
Okay,
And
Lee,
yeah,
would an example be I see the sky right now? Is that
well, I was
okay?
going to give you another example, and
Okay,
because I think this may be helpful. Because
okay.
again, it depends on what you mean by that. Yeah,
Damn it.
the sky is kind of you picked a good one for sensation because it's homogeneous, basically. Now, if you've got clouds in it, and if you're talking about perceiving the clouds, that is not sensation, that is perception. But if you have something like what the psychologists call a Ganzfeld, an homogeneous field with no structure, that's certainly more like a sensation. But let me give you a different example.
Okay, okay,
So I got this pen here. You can sort of see it. It's goes in and out of focus. But so you take this pen and roll it around in your hands. There are different kinds of attention that you can give to that experience, to what's going on there. This comes from the Gestalt psychologist David Katz, but probably nobody cares about that. But anyway, if you do this, you can pay attention to the feeling of the rolling on your hands. And there's a kind of a certain kind of a feeling that's different from sandpaper, or different from water. And you can feel the
yeah.
way it feels as it moves along, moves along your hand, how it feels, and that's sensation. But the other thing you can pay attention to is the pen. And say, what am I perceive? What's the object of perception here? And you perceive a pen, and you perceive attributes of the pen, such as hardness. It's hard. The cylindrical shape, maybe the pointiness. So if you point it, if you do that, so those are two different kinds of attention. The first one, the feeling on your hand, is sensation. The second one, the awareness of the object itself, your direct awareness of the perceived object. Well, that's perception. So that's
Okay,
the difference. And
so you're
Gibson says, by the way, let me add one more
right.
thing, one more thing quick. Gibson says the second awareness about the pen is not based on the first awareness. You don't first take your awareness of how it feels on your hand, and then your brain does something to that
Okay.
and produce the awareness of the pen. Gibson says, no, that's not right.
Okay. I want to go deep with you, and at the same time, I want to be aware of my audience, and I do want to get to affordances. I know this stuff is very complex, and we can do hours on just the pen, but I know that. But okay, so one thing you're saying is feeling a pen is not is sensing sensation. It's not perception, but looking at a pen and think and knowing that it's a pen is perception. Is that
All
one thing
right,
you're
wait a
saying?
minute, wait a minute. Stop right there.
Okay.
I didn't want to go there. I
I
I, I didn't want to go to vision at all. We could,
okay,
but
okay,
the
damn it,
distinction
Lee.
is not
Okay,
between.
okay.
See, the words. It's difficult with the words, isn't it?
Yeah.
The word feeling is normally associated with sensation. So what I would put it. Let me see if I can differentiate. When you feel what it feels like on your skin, not what the pin is, but you're focusing on what it feels like on your. It's what David Koch called a pole of attention. You've got what he called the subjective and objective pole, which is not quite the right
Okay.
way to. But anyways, the pole of just feeling it on your what it feels like on your skin. That's sensation. But when
Okay.
you're paying attention to what it is you're feeling, that is to say, what it is you're touching, haptic touch, active
Explain,
touch.
explain, explain haptic.
Haptic is Gibson often used that word to refer to active touch when you go out and explore.
Okay.
When you take a thing and go around with it or feel it, you go out there and feel the thing, not just passively against your skin, not just let it go passively, but you go out and try to do something with it. You get a lot more information haptically than by passive touch. A lot more information,
Okay.
and the information is not contained in that sensation. It's contained in the energy that impinges on your whatever they are. We won't call them
Okay.
neurons. Those
Well, no,
things.
I mean,
Yeah,
okay. I know I may be repeating stuff, but
that's all right.
this is I can tell my relationship with you is going to be a pleasurable nightmare, a very pleasurable nightmare. So I okay. Okay, that's a compliment. Okay,
Oops.
so just average Joe out there, people they say, look, we have five senses, seeing, hearing, etc. And are you saying that's deeply confused or loaded or false, or are you okay with just common sense people out there talking about five senses, seeing stuff, hearing stuff, touching stuff, tasting, smelling?
There's a lot of, I mean, that people are not as confused as psychologists and philosophers who are
Okay.
really confused.
Okay.
But there's another, nevertheless, there is a lot of equivocation about what is meant when you use a term like sensing. Because as I say, sensing can be considered sensation, or it can be considered perception. And some authors who I will not name flip between the two much too quickly sometimes. And so I'm just trying to make a distinction, but the distinction is made better than I'd make it in Gibson's book, The Senses Considered as
Okay.
Perceptual Systems, which I
Okay.
particularly recommend, especially for objectivists, by the way.
Okay. Um,
But we could move from there.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know how much
no, no,
further
no,
we
okay.
go.
So yeah. And I thank you.
Yeah.
Could you get to affordances?
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the idea, Gibson's basic idea is that what you perceive is the world,
Yeah.
not your interpretation. You don't do interpretation. You don't do some kind of problem solving thought process to discover there is structure in the stimulation. In the case of vision, it's light. There is structure in the light which the visual system, perceptual system uses to detect. Detection is a good word for what you do in perception in the Gibson view. You detect what's out there and you detect its nature, its attributes. The attributes, so an object can be round and you can detect that perceptually. By the way, you can detect it either by haptic touch or by vision, that famous Molyneux problem, which we won't get into.
How,
But anyway, you can detect that feature. Among the features that are detectable, according to Gibson, and probably the most important features are what the objects in the world, the entities, the things out there, what they offer you, what they furnish for you for good or for ill. What they furnish for good or for ill. That's Gibson's. I don't know if that's an exact quote, but it's a pretty good quote. Of That's what Gibson means by an affordance. So, for example, if I can look at the chair over there, I see a chair. Well, you can't see it, but I see a chair, and I can perceive that it's sit onable by me. It's sit onable. That's an affordance. I can see that if I can go through I can open the door and walk through it. That's an affordance. Being able to walk through the door.
is is
Yeah.
something is something being said more? Actually, could you offer a definition? If you did it already, I to repeat a definition of affordance.
Well, I gave now, I did I could go look up my
No, no, no.
exact definition, but approximately,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
given that I might not have it 100% right, it's what I'll use things here. What things in the environment, objects, but
Offer.
what the environment furnishes to a perceiver for good or for ill,
Is
provides to a perceiver for good or for ill. It's the
what do you mean for
It's the
good?
notion of value. It's the notion of value, idea of value considered on the perceptual level. Okay,
Value is, oh my God.
it's
Um,
it's the notion of value. Now I have to explain it a little further because that's a little bit slightly off, but it's approximately it's a good idea to hold in mind.
okay.
Um, the object itself, the affordance is a feature of the object. A chair is shaped in a certain way, and because of that part of its nature, because of that characteristic that it has, it affords sitting. So an affordance is a feature of an object, but it's a feature of an object in relation to a possible perceiver, because like let's say you're well, I can sit in a chair, but if I gain another 100 pounds or something, I'd sit in the chair and it would break. See, it's a for or affordances are relational. There's something like, and this is only an analogy to the notion of objective and objectivism. They're relational between the perceiver and the perceived. I can sit in a chair. However, another affordance would be the surface of a lake affords support to a water bug because of surface tension. But the surface of a lake does not afford a water afford support to me. If I go into the water, I will sink. So an affordance is in relation to a perceiver. It's relational, but it's also a feature of the object. It's not subjective. It's not a creation. It's not an invention. It is part of the nature of the object that the object affords. Fruit affords eating. Green fruit affords bellyache.
Okay, thank you. So, an aside to specifically to the organic intelligence audience, one thought
Yes.
I had here about why Roger Atlas was bringing up affordances, and now with Lee's explaining it, is that I could see from an organic intelligence perspective that ha having thoughts along the lines of these affordances and being able to have those thoughts as opposed to worrying about your life problems would be an indication that intensity level is low and stable and optimal. So that could be a relevance of the concept of affordances in OI thought space. So now, okay, so it sounds like an affordance is knowledge knowledge I automatically have in mind when I perceive things.
Well,
Uh,
no.
no.
Again, affordance is a property of something existing independently of you, like a chair or a tree stump or a hole in the forest.
Oh, you said that. It's a property
It's a
of the
property of
entity.
something. It's not a mental entity. It is no
So,
kind of mental entity.
so you're
So
saying,
that's why I said when I said it was a value, it's not exactly right because a value is a mental of some kind of mental entity. And Gibson, by the way, does not deal too much in mental entities. So it's not exactly, but it's value significance of 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 things in the world, and they have that property whether there's a perceiver or not. Whether you perceive it or not, the affordance is there.
okay,
You could say objective is not really the right word, but I want to say it's an objective feature of the object. That's not really exactly right either. See, it's hard to,
so
yeah,
so sit onable
yeah,
is a feature of a chair
yes,
in relation to the perceiver.
yes, because what's sit honorable for a little small child, a chair, a little baby chair or small child chair, would not be sit honorable for you. So it's
Okay, okay.
you sit on
So
that little baby chair and you won't fit and you probably break it.
okay, I think I'll. So soon momentarily we'll get into topics that are juicier for you. But let me ask this. Um,
I get a lot of juice out of this
no, yeah, I
topic.
know, but I know you want that there are many topics that are of great interest to both of us, like volition and but
Sure.
um,
Yeah.
do you think? Okay, my gut reaction right now is what the hell is the point of this concept of affordances? And Roger, why did you introduce it to me? So, do you think it's a valid concept? Do you think it's a justified? Do you think it's a motivated concept? Is it an important concept? Can you address that?
Yeah, I certainly do think because, but I'm not sure in relation to your
Oh, but just in
organic
general. Yeah,
intelligence
yeah. Don't worry about
system. I'm
OI, but
not.
just
I'm not at all sure how it fits into that. I
oh,
couldn't
don't worry
say.
about that. Oh, I'm just
But
ignoring
but
OI.
the idea of um, what amounts to perceivable values, where again I'm using value, perceivable value significance maybe is the best way. I think it's an important idea for understanding what perception is, for one thing, because it is a tendency to think of perception as being of a kind of shapes and colors and stuff that's basically meaningless. And what this points up is that perception is meaningful, and I think that's very important to grasp that.
Oh,
That
okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
meaning your perception. You already have meaningful grasp of the world when you perceive the world. An animal, it's crucial for an animal to be able to perceive the difference between something that's helpful or something that's harmful. A pineapple versus a beehive. Well, Beehive has got both kinds of affordances, doesn't it? Has positive and negative. But anyway, it's crucial, and they can. I would insist they can. Now, the concept of affordance has been criticized by a certain philosopher um, as overextended, basically. Because when Gibson talked about it, he said he actually got this from his another psychologist. But anyway, he said you can perceive the affordance of a mailbox for mailing. Now that isn't exactly right. I mean, I would say Gibson. I don't go with Gibson there because you really have to have a conceptual grasp of what a mail system, what mailing is about, and all that,
Mm.
so in order to grasp that as an affordance. It's not a purely perceptual matter. But that critique does not mean that the concept of affordance is invalid. It just means that it's possible to overextend it, which I think is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing you said, which I really find interesting, is perception is meaningful. And I wanted to
Yeah.
introduce an idea from the OI theory and see if it has anything to do with what you're talking about or affordances.
Yeah.
So one idea here is when our perception, well, first of all, from organic intelligence perspective, perception is an achievement. I know that's a phrase that you would like to. Perception is an achievement in the sense that if you can perceive the world and your attention can be on the world as opposed to stuck in internal intensity, that's a very positive sign. And often what you will perceive will be very meaningful positively for your life. For example, you're going through some issue in life where you need to stand up for yourself, but you're scared, let's say, and then you're just at a coffee shop, and then you're just taking things in perceptually, and you see someone standing up to someone else, and you observe that fight, and then by perception, there's the term here in organic intelligence will be outsight, that you're processing something interior through perception. You're seeing, oh, that person is standing up to someone else. I see that in my perception, and that helps you stand up for yourself in some other context without having to go internal and introspect a lot. You're just seeing it out there, and that helps you. Is anything like that happening or connected to or relevant to perception as meaningful or affordances?
It sounds good. It's not particularly something that Gibson
Yeah,
would
yeah,
focus on,
yeah, yeah.
but that's does that. But Gibson, in my opinion, Gibson was. I'm going to think about this for a second. One of the
Uh,
two greatest geniuses in psychology.
well, you know my next question, Lee.
My number one genius is William James,
Oh, yeah, okay, okay.
who's a
Oh,
but
I,
yeah.
uh, uh, if I have you back on, which I want to, or in some context, I would like to ask you about pleasure and pain. So that'd be cool. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah. Okay.
well, we're going to get to that when I get you
Oh,
too.
good Lord. Okay. Okay. Wait. By the way,
So
this is not hostile.
no, of
We're
course
right.
not.
Okay. Okay.
And I don't. I hope I'm not
No. Okay.
creating hostility.
No. No.
I believe in sharp but very friendly
Yeah.
discussions.
Okay.
That's what I believe in.
Well, I get the vibe
So
that you've studied up on me, and there's some things that you disagree with, and you're going to bring me on to cutting edge to kind of.
but I'm not gonna be mean or
Okay.
anything.
Okay. Not gonna be mean.
I
Right. Right.
have some things. You're right. I have read a little bit of your thesis, and I've read your article with Hoskinson, the published article, and
Oh,
I
thank
have
you.
a lot of notes.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
And then
Okay.
there are various kinds, but they raise questions, and that's what we talk about. That's what we're gonna.
No,
Anyway,
I
that's
appreciate
not
it.
today's work. I'm drawing you off from what you were trying to do
No, don't
there.
worry.
So
Okay. Thank you. I
that's another
appreciate
day. Well, that's another. We're gonna do that though.
I appreciate that
Yeah.
you read my article and that you have a lot of critical thoughts and questions about the organic intelligence stuff. So, okay, let's put the affordance stuff. I'm happy with the affordance mention. Again, the reason I asked you about it was that Roger kept bringing it up whenever I talked about orientation. So I wanted to just it's in this recording. It's in the I thought space for the future.
Yeah, and it's probably the most famous idea from Gibson because
Mm,
it was made very popular by this fellow Don Norman, who has a slightly different take on it. But
yeah.
he spent some time with Gibson. He learned about it, and then he had put his own spin on it. So it's a little different. But it's become pretty widespread in the culture, especially in tech. Like
Interesting.
well,
Okay. So we have many different topics in psychology that are of interest to you and of interest to me and will be interesting to Ayn Rand people and organic intelligence people. We could just pluck anything, but I'll throw out some big terms and see what you do with it. Consciousness, what is it for? Volition, focus, skill of will. Where do you want to go? How do you want to,
Well, I guess consciousness is a starting point for anything to do with psychology, in my opinion.
yes, please.
May not be yours. I don't know.
I'm down with it.
About okay. So let's see. I don't, there are many mysterious issues, like where does consciousness come from? How does it arise? What's that they call the hard problem? How you got a
Oh,
brain and how did a
um,
conscious mind? I
okay.
don't have anything to say about that.
I prefer so I
You have a
would
better, you like
yeah,
the,
anything that's more focused on practical living and pursuing happiness.
well,
Yeah.
okay, but I kind of usually work my way from the theoretical stuff,
Yeah, let's be
working my
organic.
way
Yeah.
around to something practical from it.
Okay, I want
I like both practical things and theoretical things, but I usually start with the theoretical stuff and kind of go
I
from there.
I want you to
So
be you and
yeah,
I want you to do what's pleasurable for
so
you because it's all about pleasure.
what I've thought about in respect to consciousness is encapsulated in that article with Monroe Trout. What is consciousness for?
Yeah.
Our basic contention is that consciousness evolved for the volitional control of movement. That's what it evolved for, fundamentally. So another way of putting this point is that consciousness, the causal efficacy of consciousness is bound up in volition. Period. There is no other causal efficacy of consciousness, in our opinion, and that's what we wrote an article about to support. We don't, by the way, we don't claim that we know that for sure. That amounts to being a hypothesis, but I think it's a likely hypothesis, and I don't think there's another one out there that's worth even thinking about so
Okay.
far. Yeah.
You're saying consciousness evolved to direct movement.
Yes.
Okay.
Plants don't have it because they're planted and they don't need it. The organisms that need it are animals, the ones that can move, and there is automatic control of motion, which is by the brain. But consciousness evolved on top of the brain, as it were, on top of the neural structure for the more flexible volitional control of movement. And of course, later when you get to humans, now we get into the volition as the control of thinking or cognition. But the evolutionary purpose of it is, and even for humans, is to control movement ultimately. And that's all. The point is that there aren't any other, we don't think there are any other functions of consciousness.
Are
A
there
consciousness without volition would be a couch potato. If you had consciousness, there's a little thought experiment. If you had consciousness, but couldn't do anything, you couldn't make any volitional choices, you'd be sitting there on your couch and stuff would happen to you and you couldn't do a thing about it. It'd be horrible and useless.
wait. Oh, are you saying that consciousness and volition arose at the same time and that they're unitary?
Absolutely. They're unitary because volition is the causal efficacy of consciousness, basically. That's correct.
What
That's
were
our
the
thesis.
okay, your thesis is conscious. Can you just repeat the thesis one more time?
Oh boy.
You just
Well,
said it.
what in evolutionary terms,
Yeah.
consciousness evolved for the flexible volitional control of movement, basically. But
Yes.
in humans,
Um,
it's more than that. But that's what it evolved for, and that's all. Consciousness,
well,
it doesn't do anything else.
to
It's
me,
not
that seems plausible, maybe common sense, but I'm not expert, but it just seems plausible. And of course, but are there people who disagree and what do they say? So,
sure. Lots of people disagree.
hmm.
Some of whom you know.
Who?
Uh,
Who? I want
do
names.
I have to name
I
names?
want name. Well,
Okay. Harry Binswanger doesn't really agree with this idea. Most of the objectivist philosophers that care, most of them don't care about it, but most of them that care don't agree with it because because they believe that that volition is strictly a feature. Well, I'll give you another guy, Ed Locke. That's a good example. Ed Locke does not believe this idea because Ed Locke believes, as he said in his book, and by the way, I like his book. The book is called "The Illusion
Goal
of
setting?
The Illusion of Determinism," right?
Oh, not his. Okay, okay. I mean,
Yeah,
he's the inventor of goal setting theory, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which I mean, that's another. We can talk about that too sometime. But okay, anyway, there's a book called The Illusion of Determinism, which is one of the few things out there that opposes the deterministic trends in our culture. So
Okay.
but however, I don't agree with the basic idea that volition is limited to going to the conceptual level, as he puts it. But that's the kind of standard objectivist view, is that
Wait,
volition is purely a conceptual phenomenon and therefore applies only to man and
wait,
not
wait,
to
wait.
any
Sorry, finish, finish.
only to man and not to the poor, not to any poor doggies or cats or cows.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. I, I'm just starting to, as the seconds go by, I'm getting more acquainted with what we're doing here and what. Okay, so you're saying the position you just characterized as volition is conceptual and only conceptual. You're saying
Yep,
that is a part of objectivism, the philosophy of Ayn Rand, and you're saying that
yep,
is endorsed by Harry Binswanger and Ed Locke. Is
yeah,
that okay?
yeah. Although
What about
I must say that there are a few places here and there where Ayn Rand notes that there's more going on than that. But they're not in the published. They're in the things like the unpublished objectivist epistemology
wait?
workshops and other things. So anyway, that's just a minor point. The major
Wait.
point is
Okay.
the primary view in objectivism is that volition is a conceptual phenomenon. Period. And couldn't apply to
Yeah.
lower animals,
Let me
but lower animals are conscious.
wait. Let me
See,
ask. Wait. Okay, this is really deeply interesting to me. Okay. Uh, first of all, wait. Okay, Lee. Right now, I'm looking at the sky, and then I'm gonna turn my attention to a tree. So I just turned my eyes from the sky at large, and then I just suddenly focus on a tree.
yes.
That was an act of volition.
I am completely in agreement with you on that.
You're
Totally.
but who could possibly you're Harry would no,
Oh,
I mean I chose to I was looking at I'm gonna look at this tree and now I'm gonna look at this tree. Now I'm gonna look at Lee again. Now I'm gonna look at the sky. That's volition.
yes, that's right. I'll tell you what the counter argument, such as it is, because I've been down this road more than a few times.
I can't believe. Go
The
ahead.
ruts in that road are very deep. The counter argument. Let me see if I can give it, because the counter argument makes no sense to me at all, none. But here's the counter argument. Yes, you can do that, but you are a conceptual being, and that somehow all of your awarenesses are tinged with conceptuality, and presumably then you would not be able to do that if you didn't have a conceptual faculty. That's kind of the argument. Now, I don't think there's any evidence for that. But they do want to defend this idea, which is definitely an objectivism. You can get it even in the objectivist ethics if you want to go there or other places, that volition is a conceptual phenomenon. I give as a counterexample, I have even a more, um, well, I mean, it's not a better example, but I have another example that I thought was you couldn't knock down, which is the cocktail party phenomenon. There are two things that are called the cocktail party phenomenon. One of them is that a loud noise will automatically seize your attention. A bang, a big bang, and your attention will go to it. The other cocktail party phenomenon is the opposite phenomenon of if you're at a party with, let's say, a big room of 100 people and they're all gabbing away, so you're sitting in this cacophony of sound. You can, if you want to, there's some guy over there that's saying something and you want to attend to that, you can attend to a particular conversation in a room of 100 people gabbing. You can do that, but you have to do it intentionally, or I would say volitionally. You have to exert mental effort of attention in order to pay attention to that conversation. And everybody can introspect that, and I think it's undeniable. But again, what people will say is, Yeah, you can do that, but unless you're a conceptual being, you can't do that, or something to that effect. That because you're conceptual, that basically tinges all of your consciousness, and so they deny that it's a purely perceptual activity. Also, they say, you know, there are other arguments that the context in which we learn what volition is a conceptual context, and now you're applying it, they would say, invalidly outside. So I use the term
Uh,
I just let me give one more
yeah,
thing, then I'll
sorry,
get
sorry.
back to
Yeah,
one more
yeah.
thing quickly. I use the word the term proto-volition to refer to what non-human animals have, even humans have, that isn't the full volition. Yes, I'm not talking about the full volition that's self-consciously deployed on internal contents that we have. But nonetheless, there is a perceptual level of volitional intention that is indeed volitional, just as you described it and as I describe it. But that's that. I'll tell you, I get a lot of opposition to. It's kind of a split. Some people like it, and some people don't.
Okay, I many different directions in my brain. Uh, are you familiar with Giovanna Colombetti and her work and her ideas that all organisms have sense-making impulse and anything like that?
This sounds really vaguely familiar, but I'm going to
Okay,
say no.
okay,
I don't think.
it's
I don't think I.
not that I would
For
listen to
some
disagree.
reason, it's from. It might have been because I just read about it in somebody's article. Maybe I don't
Oh,
know, but it
okay,
sounds vaguely familiar. But I don't know anything. No,
okay.
no about that.
So by volition you mean free will,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and
Mhm.
by that you mean, and I mean, and objectivists mean, and most people mean the ability to direct your attention non-deterministically. I mean, you have
Yeah.
control
Yeah.
over your attention.
The mental effort of attention, which you choose where it goes to. You direct it by
Okay.
choice, and
And
that is not under the control of antecedent causes. Correct.
you're saying that Ayn Rand would say that perceiving is not volitional? That sounds nuts. You're saying that she says
No,
she
objective. Let's forget about Ayn Rand because she doesn't have. She's not the one that talks too much about this.
okay,
This is
okay,
more
okay.
in Peikoff or Brandon or other places, but she does talk about it, like in the Objectivist Ethics. And
Yeah.
the what's
Oh.
repeated over and over in the Objectivist literature, over and over, is that perception is utterly automatic, completely automatic, not volitional. The term, I mean, they don't say so much not volitional, but what's stressed is that it's automatic and it just happens. You
Well,
open your eyes and you see stuff. That's the basic idea, and that
well that
no volition is required for
okay, okay.
perception. Now,
So
I do disagree with that formulated that way. Yeah.
Ayn Rand says orientate. Sorry. If I say orientation, I mean perception. Okay, it's hard for me to, but just take that. Okay, Ayn Rand says perception, yeah, is automatic. You open your eyes and you see stuff, and then your ears will hear stuff. You're denied. I mean, by the way, I have watched many of your episodes on Cutting Edge where you discuss perceptual inerrancy with Harry Binswanger, with Robert Stubblefield. So, but you're
Yeah.
saying, okay, let me just say my view in the moment, which I haven't thought about a lot. And I know
That's okay.
I haven't thought about this as
That's all
much
right.
as you have or Harry has, but
No problem.
obviously something is automatic. I mean, there's some automaticity. Uh,
Yes.
so
Yes.
the denial in perception, there is a lot of automaticity. So I right now I'm seeing what I see, and then if I move my head, if I move my eyes, I'll see something different. But so uh,
Yes, that's right.
uh,
There's a lot of stuff that's
but
automatic. Neural
but
processes. A lot of
and
that neural
yeah.
processing is just automatic. Sure. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that everything that is involved in perception is volitional. No, by the way, of course, it's also true that not everything involved in concepts is volition.
I was gonna say that because
There's a whole neural processing automatic system, and it gets automatized, and there's a whole lot of automatic stuff. Or I should say, let's put it. physically determined, perhaps even
Well,
stuff
isn't
that goes on. So it's not that it's like a pure. It's all just volition. The question
isn't
is
yeah.
volition involved in the process?
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean,
of a
oh boy.
sort. Anyway, a volition of a sort is involved in the process of perceiving because you choose what to attend to. You choose movements. Uh, yeah, you can choose. You can even choose internal attention, as illustrated by the cocktail party phenomenon. There's even some way you can orient that uh, volitionally,
Well, let me
proto-volitionally again.
I want to try to bring in an analogy and see if it does anything here. So you have a friend who disagrees with your politics. If you talk about politics, you will get with him, you'll get angry. If you avoid politics and talk about the weather, you won't get angry. Okay, let's just suppose that. So if you talk about politics with him, anger will be automatic and determined if you talk about politics with him. If you just stick with the weather, it will be determined and automatic that you will not be angry. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So that to me is a very simple life situation that happened that's true. And it just seems like the same thing is going on with your discussion of perception. And I don't see what the disagreement. So right now my perception is automatic. If I move my eyes, which is volitional, it will just change. If I see a crocodile, I'll suddenly get scared and that'll be automatic. If I look at the sky instead and don't know there's a crocodile there, then I'll be fine. So I think I'm saying things that to me seem very obvious and boring and uninteresting and not or
You might think so. On what you just said, though, I think there's an obvious comment. I didn't say emotions were volitional. Emotions are automatic. Feelings, emotions. So your emotional responses are not a feature of volition. That's, by the way, that's important.
no,
That's
yeah, no, I
why that's why cognition trumps emotion.
wait,
When you're
wait,
talking
wait, wait.
about,
That's a whole yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. You're my guest. Please continue. Please continue.
well, I'll just wrap that up quickly. But when you're talking about what's true, according to objectivism, you're supposed to use your thinking, not your emoting, to determine the truth. And the reason for that is actually that thinking is volitional, and you can always do more, and you can correct. Emoting is automatic, and if you have an emotion, it's not self-correcting. So the fact that the difference between volition that in those two cases is very important in terms of just determining what's true.
Wait, I was trying to draw an analogy.
Cognition is the boss.
I agree with that, I think. And yes, emotions are automatic. What's volitional is whether you're going to talk to your friends about politics or avoid that subject. And I was trying to draw an analogy to that to I can choose what to look at, but whatever my eyes go, the what I perceive is automatic.
Yeah, but I think that's a little over. I'm not going to say oversimplified. It's just
Why
not
not?
a good description of what perception usually involves, which is a constant interplay of this automatic stuff with intentionally changing your position. When I do this, this is intentional. Everything I do with my body is intentional, and as happens continuously. So I don't really believe in separating that out. If you separate out the intentional from the unintentional in perception, you have the brain in a vat scenario, basically. Yeah, the brain itself is automatic, and whatever it does with the signals,
Okay.
is
So
automatic. But there's a whole lot of stuff that's not automatic that is crucial, um, integral to the perceptual process, the perceptual activity. It's just and it's because objectivism doesn't recognize that as
okay,
as a
I think I follow you. So I see more and more when you say perception is an achievement, you have to do things,
yeah.
including maybe notably with your bodily movement to perceive the world. It's
Yes.
not it's not just passive and automatic. You have to do things and it requires volition to perceive the world. Now,
Yeah.
now may
Yeah.
I no, I'm going to bring in something from an example that would be floated in organic intelligence circles that your perception or orientation could be hijacked by internal intensity. So if you're having a meal with a girl or guy on a date, and they drink all their water, so you could be nice and ask the server for more water, but you may not notice their water is depleted if you're just stuck in your head. It takes an achievement to be in contact with the world perceptually.
I'm okay with that. I'm a little worried about this concept of intensity, but we
Okay,
maybe
okay.
we
Oh, damn it.
possibly ought
Yeah,
to we
yeah,
might ought to table that.
yeah. Table that.
I'm
Yeah,
not saying it's wrong. I just say I have a certain question, but I think that would pull us
yeah.
off
I
your topic, and but I'm surely going to get to that one when we strap you into the electric
okay.
chair on. Oops, I wasn't supposed to
Wow.
let you know about that.
Okay.
Cutting edge. But anyway, okay, so that's all right. I think
Okay. So
mostly.
perception, you believe that perception is volitional. Wait a minute. This is something just something occurred that from earlier in the conversation. According to objectivism, first level concepts are infallible, right? Like
Yeah. So
table.
that. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
So you can only
Yeah.
make errors when you get further down the chain, like
Yeah.
selfishness, justice,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
But if I may anticipate where you're going,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, the issue here is not really fallibility. That's a different issue. That to me, the issue of fallibility of perception has to do with confusing sensation and perception, or confusing what I call form of sensation rather with perception. That's where error comes in. The issue of volition mostly comes in not with it being fallible, but with it being uh, getting more or less information. You get very little information if you don't move. You get more information if you move. Information is always valid. Information is always specifies reality, and in that sense, perception is always valid because the structure in the light is a direct causal result of its interaction of the light with the perceived object. So that structure is specific to the object, and that's a fact of physics, I guess you could say, if you want. But
You,
where you get more information is by where the issue comes in is you can get more or less information. If you just sit there with your head still and you blink once and you see something for a few milliseconds, that's mostly not perception. You're not going to get information. If you want to get information about the world, you got to move around, and over time, you need to extract the invariance out of the variance, as
oh,
Gibson would put it.
I had thank you. I had a question when I was watching the cutting edge episodes because you referred to information a lot, and so do I in my talking about organic intelligence, the processing information. And when I use information, I often am not exactly sure what I mean. If someone were to ask me, Bach, what do you mean by intensity? What do you mean by information? I may start sweating, but it's clear enough for me to go on. But so maybe you could help
Uh,
me here and see,
okay,
like, what do you
I,
what when you say information, what is
yeah,
information?
I maybe I can help a little bit. Most of the time, and I didn't obviously I did not adhere to this policy on cutting edge, but most of the time I try to talk about invariance in the flowing stimulation. That's a little more abstract, but rather than information, because information is another one of these words highly equivocal. Because
Yeah.
there's Shannon information, bits. There's information in a book. Words in a book could be called information. The computer does information processing. Well, that's supposed to be Shannon, but I don't. Whatever that. There.
Wait,
So
what's that word you're using? There's a word you're using that I don't know. What Shannon?
Claude Shannon, the inventor
Oh,
of
oh,
information
oh,
theory,
oh, 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 oh.
invented the idea of bits of information. I think it's due to him, and that's a legitimate usage, but it's not my use. I don't use. I'm not using that sense at all. What Gibson means by information, and for that reason, since it's equivocal in the culture, I try to talk about invariance more, the invariance in the structure, which is a little hard to explain. I think we ought to table that one. I think,
What?
but
Uh,
information is specification in Gibson's view. That is, there's a structure in the light that comes off of an object an active organism can detect that structure, and that structure is specific to particular attributes of the objects. That's the means by which we perceive them. We have, we pick up information, enough information to specify that it's a synonymal. But if you look at it, if you look at it like a blink, and don't move your head and look at it for 500 milliseconds, and you're not going to see the affordance. You can't, I don't think. You see the affordance and all the other features by moving around and getting a lot more information. Well, it's in variance and the light that are extracted.
What's
Uh,
an invariance?
see, that's the problem.
No, no,
So,
I'm not holding you to like a hostile exacting
well,
statement, but
and it's another one of these terms because it's a mathematical term, actually.
well, can you just give
But
can you give me a
fundamentally,
sense like by example, not by definition?
I will try to do that.
You know,
Here's where I should have brought my slides or pictures and stuff and show pictures because then get a perception. But okay, imagine you're
okay,
on. Let's try this. Imagine you're on fairly a stochastically homogeneous field with rocks on it, but a field with rocks, but they're not exactly evenly spaced, but they're fairly evenly spaced. Okay, and the
okay,
rocks are more or less the same size, and you're
okay.
standing on this field. And let's say it's level. Let's make it simple. So just imagine, and nothing else, just you standing on there. If you walk towards me or away from me on this field, you will cover the same number of texture elements, the same number of rocks. You will occlude to my sight. I can't see. You will occlude the same number, whether you're uh, a mile away. Well, that's too far to see, but let's say 500 feet away or 100 feet away or 10 feet away. You will cover up the same number of elements of texture. So that is information for size in Gibson's theory. That's the texture gradient is probably his most famous source of invariance. That you cover up the same number of elements, and if I have a perceptual system that can detect that, I can detect how big you are without doing any calculations. I don't have to figure out how far away you are, how quickly you're moving, what your visual angle. I don't have to do any of that stuff. I just have to notice how many texture elements you are occluding, you're covering up. That would be an invariant. That number, let's say it's 10. That number is invariant no matter where you are, where you move on the surface. You will always cover up that number. I mean, I'm assuming they're basically the same size. Okay, these elements are the same size, and that they're distributed this with this more or less the same
Um,
density. Okay, more or less. So that's maybe that didn't help.
well, no,
Uh,
well, I have a suspicion that you're you're using concepts that are way more advanced than the concepts you would need or could even get by quote unquote basic understanding of perception. I just like eh,
well,
so
maybe. I mean, it's the difference between what a perceiver knows. A perceiver can see how big you are. Normal human beings can know, and they know, by the way, in the main, that even though you're far away, you're the same size as you are when you're close up. You don't get bigger in size when you walk towards me, even though the visual angle that you subtend increases.
okay,
But perceivers, everybody knows, unless you're a really small child, maybe. Everybody knows is a funny word here. Everybody knows that you're the same size no matter where you are on that field. And what perception psychology provides is a causal basis for how that
okay.
works, how that
I want
understanding
uh,
comes about.
I want to return to the concept of information because you introduced invariance to try to explain information, and I'm not following that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
to avoid talking about information. Okay, we're
well,
going to go back to information.
well,
It's just
I do want to get
yeah.
to I guess I mean this the topics here are very advanced for me and it's quite challenging mentally right now. So I might see. So um but overall I'm trying to get to perception, orientation, the nature of these, the nature of volition, how that bears on perception, how that bears on concepts and reason. That's the general area, right? Which is very, very large. So here's in the moment, here's my question. Perception, okay, to me, it seems like perception is conceptually loaded. I mean, when I perceive sky, phone, keyboard, Lee, glasses, monitor. So concepts are there at the perceptual level. I'm just stating that to see what you do with it, to see,
I mean, that's a problem.
Wh-
It's an issue.
I don't think there's
There's
a
a
problem.
sense in which that's true. I think there's a sense in which it cannot be true. If it were true that perception were concept laden, or the way the bad philosophers put it, theory laden is the term of the bad philosophers like Popper. Um, if that were true, then you would not be able to validate perception because concepts are fallible.
Well,
If your perceptual awareness is necessarily concept laden, then the validity of your perception is based on is rooted in the validity of your concepts, and your concepts may be mistaken, and
okay,
therefore
man.
you've undercut the validity of perception that way. So
Wait,
there's some sense in which I don't think that can be true.
okay,
Th-
but
th- there- There's a
okay,
sense in which it is true, and there's a sense in which it isn't.
okay. I was thinking that um I'm ignoring babies and the initial first perceive. Okay, I'm just adults, like adults,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they normal adults in ordinary life. We orient and concepts are already there. I mean, I know, okay, that's fire. If I walk into that, I'm gonna be hurting. That's a breeze. I can walk into a breeze, no problem. That's a wall. I can't walk. If I walk into that, I'll smash. I mean,
Yes.
there's concepts and
Wait,
knowledge.
wait, stop there.
Okay, okay.
If you don't mind my
No,
being
no, please leave. Please leave.
assertive that way.
Okay.
Sorry for jumping in, but I wanted to stop you right there when you said concepts. You're assuming that your awareness of the heat of the fire, of the what were the examples you used? The breeze, the
Breeze and
coolness of
wall.
the breeze, the hardness of the wall. You're assuming those things are conceptual, but it comes back to affordances.
I was going to come back
According
to
to Gibson, those are perceptual in nature. You don't have to have a concept to know that to perceive a fire is hot, a breeze is cooling, a wall is hard. Those things can all be perceived without concepts at all. Don't need any concepts for that stuff. Now, there's a level at which you start needing concepts, but that's, as you say, that's beyond the first level of concepts. When you get to that second level and higher levels, if you're talking about your awareness of electrons, your awareness
wait.
of Say's law, or any number of other things, then we're getting the conceptual area. But when you're talking about basic stuff, that's perceptual, and it has to be. I'd say it has to be because concepts,
Okay.
by the way, in
Yeah.
objectivism are supposed to be condensations of perception, not additions. Additions that's the Kantian theory that
Yeah, no, they're integrations of perceptions.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
So
So
your perception's got to have that meaningful stuff in there somewhere to start with. Otherwise, we're in the arms of Immanuel Kant.
okay. I
And
just
space is a concept that is imposed on the data of sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I
by
just
the way,
realized
I'm going to throw in one more thing
okay,
quickly.
okay.
Gibson told me without any prodding whatsoever that his main enemy in philosophy was Kant. He was pretty,
I mean, he sounds
yeah.
very philosophically intuitive.
Yes, yeah, he sort
Yeah.
of knew what was going on. Okay, I'm sorry, but I had to throw
No,
that
you're
in.
fine. I mean, no, I
Yeah.
mean, this is very an organic conversation. So when I lead, I lead. If you want to lead, you lead. I mean, it's all, Um, so I just realized that we didn't define concept or conceptual, and I'm not. Is there a way to do it? Are you able to do it in a way that's not specifically objectivist, just a more of a
Yeah,
general, yeah,
I would say this. I'll give it a try at it
yeah,
because I'm standing on one foot, as Ayn Rand would say.
no,
So I'm gonna I'll make a shot. Uh, Perception is detection of the way things are, of the nature of things, and in the particular arrangements that you perceive them. Conceptualization is shuffling entities around mentally. You put things in a category that they're not in categories out there in the world. We're not Platonists or even
right,
Aristotelians. They're not categorized out there. We do the categorization ourselves. So that's a big difference is that perception is simply the detection of what's there and whereas conceptualization involves actively, putting things next to things that aren't next to things in the world. We put things in categories, and
Okay,
and we're doing that actively. So
right.
that to me is a major difference. Maybe I could probably say more, but
I'm with
I'm
you.
going to
I'm
stick
with
with
you.
that.
No, that's nice. I like that. Thank you. So perception is detection of of the world, what's in the
Yeah,
world, what's there in the world.
yeah,
Conceptualizing consists in oh, you didn't appeal to similarities or differences, but you said a
yeah. On the
ranging
basis of similarities and differences. Okay,
no, no, no.
sim
That wasn't a criticism. That was a point of curiosity in my mind. Okay.
I just didn't get to it.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. So conceptualizing is first of
Thanks
all
for the addition.
based no problem. Conceptualizing is first of all based on perception and must be um and consists in grouping percepts together on the basis of similarities and differences and integrating them. And the concept is the integration, right? Yeah. So, for example, a child sees two apples, one orange. Oh, these two apples are similar. The child perceives two apples in the orange. That's the detection of the world, and then forms a concept of apple, which is infallible. I don't. I mean, maybe you'll say that's not that relevant to say right now, Bach, but I'm still saying it. It's just because the first level concept is
First
infallible.
level,
First
sure.
level.
It's
Okay,
hard, or maybe
and
it's hard or impossible to mess up.
and it seems like it would be automatic too. The unit perspective and the formation of the concept,
Well,
and those are sort
again, there's that nasty term automatic. You still have
okay.
to observe. You still have to make the observations necessary to form the concept. And maybe once you've done that, it's automatic. Yes, maybe once you've made
Oh, okay, okay,
the necessary observations, I would say. Oh, and just let me just add one other
okay,
thing because
okay.
you brought up the word integrated, which triggered something with me.
Me too.
Uh,
Sorry. Go ahead.
um, you say concepts are integrated. Yes, they're integrated. Perception is not integrated. Perceptions are not integrated. You don't have to integrate what God has already put. You don't. I can't make that saying work. Anyway, you don't have to. You don't have to integrate what's already put together. The world is already put together as it is. The world as it is what it is. You detect that. You don't integrate. You don't have to break it up into pieces and then put it back together again. That is a wrong model. It's no integration. Perception is detection, not integration. Conceptualization is integration. Now, I know that's not what
Oh,
ITLE
okay,
says,
okay,
but
okay.
that's what I would
So,
say is a big difference.
okay,
Is that it's a detection process, not an integration process.
okay. One point I
Whereas
want to make.
whereas conceptualization is integration.
Okay. Uh, side commercial point. I'm appreciating the level of depth and precision and technicality and nuance you're bringing in here. And this is hard philosophy. I just wanted to say I appreciate that. Um, uh, okay. So when objectivism says perception is an integration of sensations, one thing you're disputing is integration because there's nothing you're integrating, you're just detecting what's there.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And also that sensations are not the basis of perception in any case. By the way, let me again just emphasize that what Ayn Rand says about this is true, with one caveat. She says that the discovery that perception is the integration of sensation, automatic integration by the brain of a conscious organism or living organism, something like that. Anyway, the integration by the brain of sensation, she says that's a scientific discovery, not a fact of philosophy. And I would agree with that, except for one thing. I don't think it's a scientific discovery because I don't think it's true. But, and by the way, the closest, I'm going to throw one more little piece in here. The closest theory in the history of perception to that theory that I can think of myself is Immanuel Kant's theory of perception, where Kant says that perception By the way, I'm not a Kantian scholar, and somebody can,
Well,
overrule
yeah.
me. But my understanding of Kant is that he believes that perception is the integration of sensation by the mind. Objectivism says this by the brain. Kant says by the mind, and that may be a significant difference. I'm not exactly sure what that difference is, but it's worth thinking about.
Well, I mean, okay, yes. I mean, I off the cuff, I think when Rand says brain, she's probably referring to something more physiological. When Kant says
Yeah,
mind, I mean, it would be just
that's right.
whatever, space, time, and all that stuff, causality built
Right.
into the mind. Okay, but I don't want to.
Yeah. Yes.
One uh, one thing I'm noticing in my psychoepistemology here is that I'm monitoring. Maybe there's a hypervigilance, but I'm monitoring for what concepts are not necessary for to understand something. And I get suspicious when a concept is invoked. So even when you said Rand said a perception is a group of sensations automatically retained by the brain,
Integrated,
I have
retained and integrated.
so,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Retained and integrated.
retained and integrated. Thank you.
Yeah. Of
I'm always wary of criticizing Ayn Rand, but not that
course, yeah.
not that I'm not that I won't do it, but because she's referring to brain, now I'm thinking, but do I need to have the concept of brain to know what perceiving is? So I'm one premise I have, maybe one fact of my psychoepistemology, and I think what good epistemology is, you should not use concepts that are not necessary because it implies that it's important to know. And I understand that as you get a wider and wider context of knowledge, it's justifiable and warranted to bring in higher level concepts because you want to integrate a concept into the wider structure. But still, do I need to have the word? Do I need to know the concept of brain or mind when I was 1 years old, 2 years old, and I'm just seeing things, hearing things? When Harry says when he puts a spatial array of something in his definition of perception, is that necessary? And if it's not necessary, is it contraindicated? So that's kind of where I am right now.
Well, let me throw in an objectivist
Okay.
boilerplate point. You say necessary to whom and for what purpose?
Yeah. Damn it,
Okay,
Lee.
so
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
when you have a
Yeah.
baby, that's one thing, but you're a grown man of intelligence. You need more
No,
than the
but
baby needs.
well, wait a minute. I mean, what you said, yes, it makes sense, but it, maybe in some sense it doesn't matter if I'm
There is the question of philosophy
what's the
as,
minimal
yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
what's the induction of a concept, and that's a crucial that's and you should be very one should be very wary of using concepts that are not necessary to that induction. uh
I'm probably going to disagree with that, I think.
okay, that
That
makes
is,
it makes sense that you disagree.
I think that, yeah, that there's a certain, when you first perform an inductive process to arrive at something, you arrive at something that in no way impedes adding further knowledge and
Right,
getting a
right.
deeper understanding by spiraling, and in no way prevents that. And I've run into arguments, people have made that kind of argument. Oh, you didn't use this when you can't bring this in because it wasn't brought in originally
Yeah.
when you learned the concept. And I say, so what? I can bring anything I want, including science, if I think it is useful in the present
Okay.
context. So
I'm
I'm a little bit. I understand what
yeah,
you're saying. This
yeah.
is kind of the point that philosophy is the kind of thing that anybody can. Ayn Rand's point that philosophy is the kind of thing that anybody can do in any age without special instruments or mathematical scientific training, and there's something to that. But I'm not wedded to that. I'm not even wedded to there being a hard line between science and philosophy myself.
Okay.
I straddle that line. That's where I am. I'm kind of teetering on that line all the time. So I'm not so big
Yeah.
on that as being a big deal. And if a scientific idea is useful in understanding something, I'll say use it.
Mm.
I'll leave it at that.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, and you're having a serious effect on me,
Uh-oh.
not deterministically, but because of my volition, because
Of course. Yeah.
because you're motivating me to question my own epistemology. For example, in my own thinking and explanations of organic intelligence, I avoid certain terms. For example, nervous system. And even though it's all over the place everywhere in the somatic therapy field and in organic intelligence, why do I avoid it? One thing I'm thinking is, do I need this concept to talk about orientation, talk about pleasure, talk about capacity, talk about processing? I don't need it. So it implies that someone has to know what a nervous system is exactly to know what I'm saying, and I don't want to imply that. So, but I'll be thinking about that.
I
Yeah,
understand that
yeah.
point, but I don't think it's as strong as you think because
Okay, okay.
it's not an issue of what you need, it's what's useful.
What's useful?
The
Yes.
problem I have that comes up in the kinds of writings you're talking about, which I'm not as familiar with, somatic therapy. I'm not a big consumer of that
Yeah, no problem.
literature.
Yeah.
But my problem with that kind of literature is, and similar pop psychology things, is that they bring in all kinds of neuroscience science as floating concepts.
Yes. Yeah, yes.
And
Yeah. Sorry.
that I object to strenuously. I see they talk about the left brain and the right brain and the hippocampus. I brought that one out of your paper and other things,
Well,
and I'm asking myself, do these guys really have any real clue about what they're really talking about?
first of all, okay.
Have they studied Roger Sperry's
Okay.
and Michael Gazana's experiment? I wonder about that. I think the use of neuroscience, for example, is almost always wrong.
Okay.
Almost always wrong.
Lee,
Not, I know I can't say always, but almost always.
first of all, Lee, I know you're excited to tear me down cutting edge, and I'm down for that. I'm up for
No,
that. You,
no, it's not going to
but
be that way at all.
no, but
I
no,
don't want.
but let me be. But I will say I am second author in and in an
Yes,
adjunct position, and my own epistemology and how I would do things was overridden. So
yeah.
in
I
okay, so
believe
it's
that,
not
and
right.
you'll
So
be given ample opportunity to demonstrate that to the world when we talk about it.
okay,
Because
but
I'm not trying to.
thank you. No,
We
I
really are trying to just get at stuff. We like to be
yes,
disputational
yes.
in a non-threatening way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I changed from pleasurable nightmare to pleasurable dream. Okay. My relationship with you. Okay. So what you said I love because what you just said about in the somatic therapy world, people do a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of like salesmen and snake oils and just people referring to a lot of jargon. And I agree that it's wrong to you. Yeah, let me back off from saying wrong, but a lot of that use of the technical jargon, and this paper says this, is similar to using beautiful women to sell cars or cologne. I think maybe I mean I'm not saying it's I actually support using models to sell cologne and cars, but to be aware that that's what's happening, right? Like the beautiful woman has cologne, the beautiful woman's in a car, so it motivates people to buy the car. Likewise, just to sell services, okay, you may have to okay, here's the science backing or the evidence backing, here's the literature, here's the concept of dopamine and polyvagal and blah blah. I get that, and you and I are interested in the truth and proper epistemology, and that's its own noble project. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it depends on who you're trying to sell it to. Some people
Yes.
might respond positively to that. I respond negatively to that. When I see people doing that, I say, "Yeah, I don't. I'm out of here." Usually,
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do in my
you know.
own work, that's not when I'm not second author, is to have the objective epistemology, a rational epistemology in regard to what I'm doing. Yeah.
Well, I'd really like to see that.
Oh, it's all over my YouTube videos and Substack posts. It's
Okay, all
yeah,
right.
yeah.
I
It's
mean,
not. Yeah.
in print, if we can get it in print.
I mean, it's
But
online.
anyway, we'll just this
Oh
is
yeah.
again.
Okay. Okay.
I don't
Okay.
want to drag you off
Right.
into
So
that until I do want to drag you off
right. No, I look.
another time.
I look forward to it. I'm scared of it, and
Yeah.
we'll do it. So, um,
Did you say you were scared? Is that what you said?
well, we'll see if I'm scared. Maybe,
Oh,
maybe.
no,
Oh,
no.
okay. So
We're all very nice.
you are nice. You are nice.
Steve is
Um,
nice. Bob, yeah, he's nice usually.
so I'm down. I'm down. So
Okay, all right.
can we go? You hold that. Do you have an opinion on which were the organisms that were conscious first?
Not really, because that's a very difficult scientific question.
Okay.
Very difficult. I have a sort of impression. I mean, I'm quite convinced dogs, for example, are conscious without any doubt. Cats, birds, probably. Now you start
Ants.
getting, but even there, I'm not 100. You get to reptiles, I would still bet on it. but I'm very, very uncertain about reptiles. And then when you get to, if you go down to, let's say, ants, my bet would be no. And the reason is they look like robots. And anything that looks like robots is not, and then it doesn't exhibit behavior that looks to me like volition is involved, then there's no reason for them to be conscious. So I kind of doubt it. The presence of sense organs is not real good evidence for consciousness. Is good evidence for detection, but for some kind of non-conscious detection, not necessarily consciousness. So, but I'm
Oh,
not even sure
okay.
about ants. I admit I'm not sure because what's the test for consciousness? We don't have it. I don't know. I don't. But I would
So
bet I would bet against it because anything that looks like it's volitional, dogs to me strongly exhibit that is going to be conscious in my view.
you're saying that you're saying that perception, you can have perception without being conscious. Are you, it sounds
Well,
like you're saying that.
it's a matter of definition. If it depends on what you, there's some kind of something. I probably wouldn't say that. I probably wouldn't say that because perception is probably right to include in the concept only conscious phenomena, only things that have a conscious aspect. Because there's enough differences between that and other things that you need another concept, probably. But if you want to say a robot perceives, I'm not really in favor of that. But it's a matter of
Uh,
definition. A
what do you mean?
robot can be built with light sensitive, diodes and light sensitive uh, devices, and the ability to move around and stuff. So it could do something, but it's not conscious. It's
I
not made
would,
conscious just
well,
by having
um,
light detectors. It doesn't make it conscious.
I assumed that I was not even thinking about non-living things. I just assumed they wouldn't ever perceive or have sense organs. Uh,
Well,
but
if someday, if by some means unknown to us, if you could make a robot more like a living thing and have values
uh,
and be conscious, and then I would say, yeah, I can perceive. But nobody has the
okay,
slightest idea how to do that. And any of the things that we now have don't have values, are not living, don't have consciousness, and don't have volition.
okay.
All of those mechanical things, right?
So yes, there's a lot there I
That's a
want
whole other
to. Okay,
subject.
okay. Um, what do you mean by consciousness? I mean, the objectivist position is awareness of existence. Do you follow that definition, or do you have some other view?
Well, first of all, it's not a definition because consciousness is an axiomatic
Okay.
concept. Can't really, there's no gene. I'm just giving you the stuff you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So you really can't give it. You can give a description, as you did,
yeah.
and that description sounds pretty good. It's awareness of the. See, notice as soon as you put awareness in there, you have a circularity built in. It's not like you can independently come up
Right.
with an independent
I
definition.
mean,
So
yeah.
okay, it's something like
Okay.
that. You know what it is because you have it.
Yeah. I'm acclimating to the
Yeah,
exacting standards of doing hard flop. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
yeah.
Um, you're inclined to hold that you're you're leaning to say that perception is only possible if you're conscious.
Yeah, again, this is a matter of how you cut up the world conceptually, and it
Yeah.
seems to me that there are enough differences between conscious detection and non-conscious detection to make to require a different
Okay.
concept.
Do you have
But
an
I'm not even 100% sure of that, but I think that's right. I think that's right. So I'd have some other concept for what if you have a robot that's got light sensitive machinery and also can move around and maybe in some ways can pick up invariance in some ways
okay.
physically. I have a new word for that. I don't know what it would.
Okay. Do you have an argument or explanation for your position that consciousness and volition are unitary, that all conscious things have volition because they're conscious and it's one phenomenon? Do you have an explanation or
Yeah,
argument?
that argument is given in detail in the paper.
In the
What is
trial,
consciousness for?
right.
Which you can obtain at New Ideas of Psychology. It was January 2017, I believe. And it's a free article and it's not even super long. Basically, the idea is we know that volition is a function of consciousness, is a function of at least some consciousnesses. The question is there any reason? It's I turn it around. The question is there any reason to believe in any other function? And I don't think there is. I think the people, there is a thing in philosophy, the zombie thought experiment is not good, is not valid because the zombie thought experiment is you have an entity like exactly like a human, except that it's not conscious, but otherwise behaves like a human. And some people say that's possible, like Chalmers or David Chalmers. Anyway, so they have this idea. I don't think that's possible because volition is a causal has causal efficacy. It makes conceptual knowledge, among other things, it makes conceptual knowledge possible. You can't have conceptual knowledge without volition. So the idea of a zombie without consciousness that would behave the same as a human is nonsense. However, it could do a lot of things that a human could do. I believe that the evidence is that all automatic behavior, it's not proof, and I don't say this is proven. I say that, but the hypothesis, and there is evidence for it, is that all automatic behavior can be performed without consciousness. So, and that's, for example, one piece of evidence is as something becomes automatized, your consciousness of it recedes. The more automatic it is, the less conscious you are, because you don't need consciousness when it's automatic. And there are phenomena such as sleepwalking, sexsomnia. You know, sexsomnia.
Oh, what is it?
Having unconscious when you're asleep, having sex unconsciously. You go down to your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend's apartment and you walk in, do what you want to do, and then you walk back and you don't even know you did it. That's
Interesting.
actually that's a verified
Okay.
phenomenon.
Okay.
Sleepwalking, sleep driving. There's even sleep driving. There's also the fact that if you, I'm sure you've done this many times,
I for,
if, if you sit down on a red hot stove, and what happens then is you leap up off the red hot stove. Well, you leap off the red hot stove before you become conscious of the pain, because the stove is a spinal reflex. The reply there, it doesn't have to go up to wherever conscious pain is created, and so you feel the pain after you've moved. So you don't need the consciousness of pain even to respond to damaging stimuli. It's what I believe pain is for. Maybe this gets to the pain and pleasure thing.
oh,
Pain
interesting.
and pleasure are all about volition, in my opinion. Without volition, pain and pleasure would be useless because automatic responses do not require the experience of pain or pleasure in order to be enacted. When you automatically get away from something or automatically go to
Wait,
something,
so
you don't need pain or pleasure. Those things occur neurally. They occur because of neural processes, not because of consciousness. But
so
you need pleasure and pain to inform and motivate volitional action.
volitional, you're saying response due to pleasure and pain is volitional and always so, and there's a reason for it, and can be pre-conscious.
No,
Uncon
okay. Maybe I must be babbling or something. I
so
don't know what I'm doing. Let me back up a second.
okay, okay, okay.
First of all, it's not volitional. It
It's
pleasure
not
and pain are
volitional.
on pleasure and pain are automatic. Pleasure. Hey, let me take a quick drink.
Okay, yeah. I would like.
Okay.
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
okay. So pleasure and pain are automatic themselves, but I'm
Yeah.
saying the conscious experience of pleasure and pain only matters to a volitional being because what pleasure and pain do functionally is that they inform and motivate
Wait,
volitional action.
wait. Are you saying pleasure? Are you saying conscious experience of pleasure is something distinct from pleasure, and conscious experience of pain is something distinct from pain?
Well, I do it. It's sort of like laissez-faire capitalism. It's to emphasize something. There is pleasure or there's pain, and there's also nociception. Nociception.
Yeah, yeah.
NOCI. Nociception. Nociceptors can operate completely in the absence of conscious experience. And I gave you one example is that when you leap up off of the hot stove, you're not doing it because of the conscious experience. The conscious experience is too late. You're
But
doing
you,
it as an automatic response because of nociception. And
but are you,
that's a spinal reflex, so it's a special case. But I think it's good just to illustrate the point that you can have responses without any conscious experience. Automatic responses can and do occur without any conscious experience whatsoever. So why do we have the conscious experience? Why is it there? Why does pain hurt? My answer is pain hurts because that informs and motivates volitional action. That's why it hurts. That's why the conscious experience exists. Otherwise, it would be epiphenomenal.
wait, were you saying that someone could leap off a hot stove because of pain, but not feel the pain
Yes, they will feel the pain after they've leapt off the
after?
stove.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, right. But
after because it's not so easy usually to separate the automatic from
wait,
the
wait, are you?
yeah.
Sorry, I know we're kind of on each.
Go ahead.
Are you saying that when you use the concept pain, are you saying someone can be in pain without feeling it? Because I would know.
Again, the words are some of the problem here. You can have nociception
Yeah, but that's
and therefore automatic response, and therefore automatic response without the conscious experience of pain.
yeah, but that's
Automatic
not
responses are not dependent on conscious
okay.
experience.
But then it's not pain. I mean, it's not. Then you're. Past that. Okay, okay.
No,
So,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, I
See,
mean, nociception. What is it?
it's a neural process.
Right. So
Those are
it's
neurons. Those nasty
yeah.
neurons again.
So it would
It's
be no,
neural.
no, no. I'm not. I was gonna joke saying, Lee, I don't like technical concepts, but I wasn't. So it's. I think you're saying at some point or in certain conditions, maybe most normal conditions, quote unquote, the nociception will underlie your experience of pain, but it can also underlie and motivate action when you don't feel a pain. And I would
Right.
just say then you don't.
Correct.
It shouldn't be called pain when it's. First of all, this is getting back to my
No,
earlier concepts.
I didn't call it pain. I
Oh,
didn't.
okay, okay,
Pain
okay,
is normally I would reserve pain for the conscious experience,
right.
but I did it. I call it a conscious experience on the same principle of why you call something laissez-faire capitalism, is to emphasize a point and clarify a point.
Okay, sorry.
That's the only reason.
You,
I'm talking about nociception without pain.
yeah, yeah.
Can you can have automatic action based on nociception without pain?
You're
Where
right.
by pain I mean the conscious experience. I'm just trying to clarify. I'm talking about, when I use pain, I'm
Yes,
talking about
yes,
the conscious experience. And that
yeah,
experience is not necessary for automatic reactions. That's my point.
yes. And you said that, and
Yeah.
I lost track of that when you said it. So that's why I had the follow-up questions. But yes, you said that, so I appreciate. Okay, may I would like to just even hint at a more practical orientation for some of the audience.
Sure.
So
Let's
like
get practical.
just because thinking skills, focus,
Yeah.
refocus, volition. Can
Yeah.
we at least touch on that? So there's some kind of, I mean,
Why
but
not?
I'm glad we talked about orientation for the most part
Yeah.
of the talk. But yeah,
Yeah.
can you just free associate?
Well, let's see now. I mean, we're shifting gears considerably here. Uh,
Unless you
uh,
can build a
I'm
build.
interested in we know volition, we have volition, we know it matters, we know it's important. Exactly what does volition do for you? Or let me reframe it a little more specifically, because I think the best one of the best at least descriptions of volition that you can find anywhere in the history of psychology or philosophy is by William James in either the Principles of Psychology or in the book, the one I recommend really because it's simpler, is Talks to Teachers. William James Talks to Teachers,
Right.
1900, I believe, available free on the internet. And you go to the chapter on will, and William James says something like, because I forget which quote goes in which book, but he says something like, the only moral act to think is the only moral act. He identifies thinking and morality together, and he identifies the choice to think as the basis, as the basic choice of free will. And he's very clear about it. Very clear about it. I suggest you take a look at that. And this is like in 1890 originally.
No, I was at the Objectivist Intellectuals Zoom meeting when we discussed this, or the phone,
Okay.
so years ago. So yeah,
All
but
right.
continue.
So anyway, it seems to be ignored totally. But all right,
Oh, okay.
that's neither here nor there, I guess, for this. The point is, James is a good source. So the act of volition, and I agree, is it's the mental exertion of attention, volitional attention. Exerting volitional attention is what the basic act of free will. And
It's in line with objectivism.
well, I think except now we if we get to talking about focus,
Yeah.
we'll see how there's a little
Oh,
some
okay.
issues, but I don't know if we're going to get to that today.
Um.
You got another day up there for you? I don't know.
Oh no, we can. I
Anyway,
mean, no, yes, yeah,
we
yeah,
might have to do that if
yeah.
you're up for it.
I'm fine
Anyway,
having you back. I enjoy talking to you, and it's all about
okay.
pleasure. Yeah.
If I haven't already alienated you too much, we
I told you. This is no. This is. Oh, I'm having you on because it's enjoyable and fun. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Sorry. Yeah.
I hope I'm just kidding. So anyway, okay. So on that view, okay, the question I would ask is, or I do ask myself, is what good is that? Exactly how does that help you? I mean, you can say, oh, attention helps in thinking, but exactly how? What is the mechanism? What is the means by which volitional attention actually helps your thinking? I have an answer to this that may be a little different than from what you might think. I think the whole purpose of volitional attention, which is crucial in the psychology of a rational being, is absolutely free will is the center of the activity of a rational being. That I believe the purpose is the term I use for this is cognitive refueling. The purpose is when you direct your volitional attention, you direct it to something. A good place to direct it is to a particular concept, because a concept, using Ayn Rand's file folder analogy, a concept is a kind of container for knowledge about a particular kind of thing, particular sort of thing. And you go to that. If you attend to that concept, you activate knowledge about that particular kind of thing that otherwise would not have been activated. You activate knowledge. And active knowledge is a requirement of thinking. You have to, knowledge is both the product and the fuel of thinking. You need a product, knowledge is the
Yeah.
result,
Okay.
but you also have to add knowledge in. When you say, well, let's see, is Bakho mortal? Well, he's a man. So what do I know about men? And you have to. This is going to be automatic, of course, for us, totally automatic. What comes to mind is all men are mortal, and then you get about then we derive the contextual conclusion that Bach is mortal. In a different context, it might not be true, but we get that. It's just I'm just illustrating that knowledge gets
Yeah.
added in.
Yeah.
In that case, it's highly automatic. A lot of knowledge comes in automatically, but we don't automatically add in all the knowledge we need to achieve our goals. That is not automatic, and that's why we have volition. So we use volition to activate knowledge. In order to do that properly, you have to go to the right concepts, what I call the key concepts. Key concepts are not just important, that's what key concept usually means, but the key concept is important and underactivated. Something that in your thinking is an important idea that's underactivated. And you need, if you want to move your thinking along, you want to find those concepts and activate knowledge, and that will get your thinking, moving forward. In order to find those concepts, the idea I use for that process of identifying key concepts is introspection. I think introspection or thought process introspection is my full terminology for that. That thought process introspection is really important in directing your thinking. It's introspection guides volition. Now I've just been rattling this off. I haven't given you any examples.
Well, can I offer an example for you to work
Sure.
with? Okay, because just to bring it
Yep.
to more practical living. And by the way,
Yep.
I seem to see one pattern in what you're doing is you're interested in practical living and you're looking at the most fundamental essential explanations for all the good advice out there. That's a thought I have about what the
Yeah,
one thing that you're
that's
doing.
basically
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's not almost right.
I'm
It's
not
really
saying that's, yeah,
close.
I'm just
It's
saying
really
that's
close.
anything that's happened. Okay, okay. Maybe I'll ask you to tell me the
Yeah.
exact, but in a moment. But let me just say that here's an example. Uh, let's say I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. So I ask myself that question. What do I want to do with my life? And then I see what comes up in my consciousness. Okay. Do you have a commentary on that tiny vignette? Yeah.
Well, we'd have to go into, which I'm not really prepared to do right now, into exactly what comes up to what comes into your mind as you're thinking about whether the and what we'd have to look for are some concepts there in that discussion or not in that stream of consciousness. James again.
Mm.
You have a stream of consciousness, and there are some ideas, concepts in there. Some of them are going to be slipping by too quickly to activate the knowledge. And we'd have to try to identify what those things are and ask yourself, what do I know about this? I think this is important for me, but what do I actually know about this? I'm not fully into this right now, see, because we have to go into your life. And I don't think, I think the problem with this example is, I don't know if we want to go into your life and clinical
Oh, no, no, no.
psychology.
I'm not. I already know what I'm doing with my life. I was a hypothetical person. It
See,
was just,
I use more things that as
wait,
examples.
can I just
Yep.
tell you, I'm going to just say a suspicion I have that I had in mind the possibility that you could have a very clear, peaceful internal experience or mind, and not much comes up, like this desert where nothing happens, and then once in a while a lizard pops up. So there could be, I ask, what do I want to do? And then seconds, nothing, nothing, nothing. Oh, what if I become an architect? So are you saying that there's just this constant, massive stream of concepts that are flowing, even if undetected? I had a suspicion that you would have that view or something like that.
Uh, Not necessarily, but I
Okay.
think you can facilitate that stream by identifying a key concept and asking yourself questions about that key concept. What do I know about if it's a cow? What do I know about cows? They have four legs. They're mammals. They're big. They give milk. They often have patches. They have tails.
Yeah.
You can, as soon as you start asking yourself questions, but you want to identify something important that you have not yet activated enough knowledge about. That's the key to making progress. If you get stuck in your thinking, I believe it's generally because you're not activating the knowledge that's necessary to facilitate the thought process. I think that's generally speaking the reason. It may not be in every single case, but generally that's the reason. So, in order to get out of being stuck and to make progress, to go ahead, you need to find zero in on a key concept. Why is it a key concept, by the way? Because you know the old joke about Willie Sutton, the bank robber?
No.
There's a famous old joke. Willie Sutton was an old time bank robber. And at one point, probably after he was caught, he was asked, "Why do you rob banks?" And his answer was, "Because that's where the money is." It's a joke. It's a
Okay.
joke. It's not,
So
not intended to advocate bank robbery. So, why do I say go to key concepts to get the knowledge you need to keep your thought process? Because that's where the knowledge is stored. It's stored in connection with the concepts that that cover it. And you what you do is you use the word. The word is a symbol for a concept. The word is a handle for pumping that knowledge. What do I know about cow? You start asking yourself that kind of question and related questions. You start getting knowledge. It's a handle for pumping the knowledge that you need to keep your thought process going. The word is
hmm.
connected to the knowledge of the concept that it represents, and you get it.
It
So,
sounds kind of commonsensical, obvious. You're right, of
of course,
course.
everything. By the way, everything in psychology pretty much that's right
Oh,
is pretty commonsensical, I think.
okay.
But it doesn't mean people do it.
But are you battling people who disagree that I don't know about is one question, I guess, in this project.
Well, on this particular point, it's not so much battling as people don't care. You have to
Mm,
show them. So what I try to show is how you can use this to make progress on something. But me, I'm talking. I don't get into this clinical stuff usually. Your stuff. I kind
right.
of
So I
stay.
that's my main
I stay
interest.
away from that.
Right.
I'm a almost a pure cognition guy. I'm not against emotions. I have them myself sometimes. I'm all if they're fine. But the main emotion that I'm interested in are inklings, feelings about thoughts because they tell you where to go look for something. So my classic example, I've used this a million. The first time I used it in objectivism was 1988 at the conference at Staten Island. So here's an example of an inkling. In this, see, you're in California. Okay. So in the
Yeah.
state of California, is it legal for a man to marry his widow's sister?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, that's a good reaction.
Okay.
My first reaction when I read this, it was from a research study in 1908. My first reaction was, why not?
That's what well, that was my reaction, but I
Okay,
figured since you're asking me the question, there must be something I don't know. So
okay, that's
okay.
true, but
Okay.
that's true. It's a little sophisticated for this, but that's right. I saw it. I didn't have that reaction because it was I was reading this in a book. But shortly after the uh, why not? I had a an emotion, a feeling about a thought. Well, I call them inklings, feelings about thoughts. Inklings are the early warning system of the mind. They tell you where to direct your volitional attention. And I had an inkling that there's something wrong, not integrated. I had this feeling. It feels like a rock in your shoe. It feels like it's an annoying feeling like a rock in your shoe. And I know that feeling, and I know right away that I need to go find a key concept. And it turns out I also had an inkling of which concept it was. Sometimes I have that, sometimes I don't. But I had an inkling that the concept in question is widow. Something wrong with widow here. And so I went to widow. I stopped trying to solve the problem because you can't solve the problem and activate knowledge. I can't anyway. Maybe you can, Bob. But I have to quit solving the problem, focus on the widow, and start asking questions. The best starting points are usually definitions and examples, but then you do other things. So I'd start in this case because I have a definition. What is a widow? Well, a widow is a woman whose husband is deceased, dead. And if you really hold that in mind, that he is deceased, the husband is deceased. That's part of the definition of what makes a widow. If you have that in mind and you go back and say, should a man be allowed to marry his widow's sister? If the man in question, what condition is he in? According to the definition of widow, what condition is he in? He's dead.
Dead?
He's dead. So should you be
It sounds
able?
like you
Should you be able to marry your dead person? Well, that's a matter of opinion, maybe, but offhand, I would say no. I mean, that's obviously a trick question. But the point is,
yeah.
you can solve this thing if you pay attention to inklings, if you identify the key concept, which is partly by paying. There are other ways to pay it, to identify inklings, but I mean key concepts. But the inkling is at least a starting point. You know, you find the widow, and then you start asking yourself questions about it, activating knowledge that did not come to mind automatically. That's the point. When I read it, the definition, the full meaning of the widow, or what I needed to know about widow, didn't come to mind automatically. But you can always get more by volition. And that's what I did. And once I got that, aha, he's dead. So there is a simple example in a, shall we say, purely cognitive context of what happens when you combine introspection and volition to facilitate the progress of your thinking, to make your thinking move forward. And I
And
have,
your concept of inkling, which is a feeling about a thought.
yes,
Okay. Can we end on since we have a few minutes left, can we end on back to orientation? Because
sure.
it's the main um you hold that perception, detecting the world, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, feeling, smelling, detection of the world is an achievement. Uh,
And I'm just following Gibson on that, basically.
but
Yes,
and you endorse it, you agree with,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and you said that it's valid. I think because you said
Yes,
perception is valid.
yes.
Could you explain?
Not inerrant, by the way, valid.
Oh, I don't like that. Oh, damn it. I don't. Okay, okay.
I don't like that inerrant business.
Could you
I can
explain
tell you
what?
why if you want, but you
Yeah,
know,
can you briefly?
to be try to be very brief. Inerrant simply means not making a mistake. It's a biblical term, by the way. I think it was used first
Yeah.
by biblical scholars to talk about, or not scholars, theologians to talk about the Bible. I mean, inerrant simply means not making a mistake. So if you just sit in your chair and don't say anything at all, you're inerrant.
I get
You're
it. I get
inerrant.
it.
You're not
I get
making a
it.
mistake.
Okay.
So to say that perception is inerrant is not good enough. It's too weak. Perception gives you valid information about reality. It's valid.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
not just that it doesn't make it. So when Harry says, the rainfall is, he didn't say it exactly that way, but that something, something like the rainfall is inherent. It doesn't make any mistakes, but it also doesn't give you information about reality per se.
Valid means
Perception gives you valid information. That's why I insist that. By the way, valid is the term that Ayn Rand used. Of course, she didn't use
well,
it.
is valid redundant? I mean, valid information, when you say perception is valid, you're saying perception gives
Well, we're
information
back
about the.
again. First of all, there might be such a thing as misinformation, but I don't think there is in perception. And the other thing is, it's the same point about like laissez-faire capitalism.
Okay, okay, got it,
You
got it.
want to make
Got it.
you
Yeah.
want to emphasize the fact that you achieve knowledge about the world. That's what you get. But information, when you're talking about information processing, has nothing like bits or what a computer does, has nothing inherently to do with
Okay.
reality.
I
And
just
I
want you
want
to
to
make sure
connect to
that
reality.
I just want to make sure about something that because you've said that you rarely have emotions, but I just want to make sure that you
No,
say that you
I,
that you.
can't- I should,
Oh,
I got to be careful.
okay.
I was kidding, I
Oh,
have as
no, no.
many
I mean,
emotions
with
I have as many as any other
okay, with intellectual people, it's
Joe
hard to.
on the street.
Okay. So
I'm not a cold, heartless fish.
can you say yes to
I don't
this?
think so. Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you, yeah, you're okay, thank you. Can you say yes to this, please? The purpose of perception, I mean, perception is achievement, and why talk about why is it important to help you live and pursue happiness on Earth? I just want to verify that with you.
Absolutely, because that's what
Absolutely.
affordances are about. That's what affordances are about. They're about of getting the good stuff and avoiding the bad stuff. What the environment offers you good things, and also offers you bad things, and you want to stay away from the bad things, and go to
Oh,
the good things.
and
Crudely stated, that's what it. Sure. So perception's all about life.
you
Although,
endorse
yeah, okay.
and you
Yeah.
endorse the concept of affordances.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, again, many objectivist philosophers, many
I
the
mean,
ones I know don't endorse it, but I do.
okay.
Yes,
I won't fight the concept. I'm going to run with it.
within its proper limits. Within its proper limits,
Well, there's a whole thing there. Okay, okay.
which is not
So
conceptual stuff. I don't say it's right. It was really right for the um, mailbox. The mailbox. Does the mailbox afford mailing? Really
let me
only
take
to a.
control. Lee, let me
Yeah,
take control. So
please.
orientation, perception, or orientation in organic intelligence. With orientation, you're saying, Gibson's saying, and you endorse that with orientation, there's affordances, which are features of objects in the real world out there that are relational to the perceiver and that point you towards pleasure, joy, life, happiness.
I'm trying to think what Gibson would say. Gibson doesn't talk that much about pleasure.
Yeah, I'm trying to bias
But
this towards,
let's just say, without getting too deeply into pleasure, because that's a subject that brings up issues of what's hedonism versus eudaimonism and stuff like that,
okay. Yeah.
which we will get to at another time, right? But if we want to just say life, it's about
Life.
promoting life. Yes, absolutely.
Orientation is promoting life. Perception orientation is
Yeah.
promoting life, and affordances. And when Raja was all about affordances, he was kind of picking up on this, and you helped me talk about it here.
Yeah, that sounds
But
right. Yeah.
okay, we're gonna get into some crazy stuff in the future. I know it, and
Which is
pleasurably,
good. This
which
is
is good.
good.
Yeah, pleasurably, and Uh, any last words? My last words are thank you, Lee. I look forward to more. Orientation is pro-life through affordances. Any last words, Lee, on anything, whatever?
That's a tough one. Let me think for a second.
Sure. There's no rush. You can.
Well, we didn't get to, we were going to talk about volition as a vector another time.
I'm fine. Another, yeah. So I'm happy to do
Another
more.
time. Uh, what else do we know?
We
Things
could
like
end
the nature of what's the nature of tabula rasa? That's another
none of the
interesting
time. Okay. Nothing else.
topic. I mean, there's still
I meant
there's
closing.
some loose ends. So as long as you realize I haven't quite discussed everything I know yet. I got a few things left.
Wait. Loose ends relative to an agenda that you would want to talk about. I'm just talking about within the
Yeah,
context of what.
what we've already discussed.
Okay.
Yes. As soon as we get off, I'm sure I'll think of it. As soon
I'm
as we
sure.
quit, I will
Can
think of it.
Can we end by
Yeah.
orienting for a few seconds to the environment around us?
Well, you can't from me because I got it all blurred
No,
out.
but I know that you'll be doing it. That's the point. We're co-orienting.
Okay, co-orienting. Ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
we're just perceiving the world,
Okay. I
recognizing affordances that are pointing us
yeah,
to.
yeah. I see that.
All right, I ended with Lee with some co-orientation.
Whoa.
Uh, thank you, Lee. Until next time.
Thank you. To be continued, I hope, in one or more different places.
To be continued.
Very good.